I came home in September 2019, and my sister had gone to sing in China. This was another thing. She'd gone to sing in China in November, and she'd come back with a horrendous hacking cough. And I got something a little bit like flu, but it didn't last a couple of days. And so when this news started coming out of China, I immediately thought of what Heather had had, and she'd been actually quite ill with it, and so had her partner. And I thought, oh God, what if it's worse than it seems? And then suddenly I got completely panicked by these videos I was seeing coming out of China. And I've read a lot of dystopian sci-fi, so I really did overreact quite badly, to the point where I had cupboards full of groceries. But you were off somewhere having fun in the Florida Keys, weren't you, when all this happened?
Yeah, I did a little event in somewhere in Florida, and then we went down. I was with my son, did a couple of theme parks, I think it was, and then we did a tour down the Florida Keys, and we did the Marcus Cruise. So we had I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks away, I think it was, something like that. It was great.
And then I was obviously communicating what was happening with you guys, and so tell it from your side what happened. We're into the 2020 now.
We came back, and it was I'd come to the conclusion that I was only prepared to do a couple of events a year, and just speak to a small group of people, 20, 30 people, a couple of times a year. And, I didn't need to do anything else because, obviously we'd made a fair bit of money out of assets and things like that. And so I didn't have the, it's, I think this is a key thing for entrepreneurs to actually understand, what's your number, right? And everyone goes, oh, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, that sort of thing. My number is enough. Yeah. My number's enough, right? And when you learn what enough is, and you can generate enough, a couple of weekends a year, that's plenty, right? And so I had nothing to prove anymore. I could go into loads of stories about what went on.
We're talking both income and assets there, aren't we? So people have got an enough figure for the family for the rest of their life, and then you've got an income figure to maintain your lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. Otherwise, I'd have to pay for my first class flights around the world. It's far easier to go and speak a couple of times and get paid for it, or do a bit of consultancy. But anyway, so we were over there, and I'd heard bits and pieces about this thing and China virus and this sort of thing. What is it pronounced? China. Anyway, and we came back, and so anyway, the first rough back of the fag packet figures came out, and being quite good at maths and analytics, as you know, with all the stuff I've done, I took a look at the figures and I went, well, this is I said, it's a little bit scarier than the common flu. I said, but it might not be. It might only be as normal as the common flu. And that was it. And of course, I put this online, and the abuse I was getting was just unreal, unreal, because I had quite a few followers. And it was non-stop abuse, and I just go, well, look, I'm just saying that the stats they've released show this thing isn't that scary, right?
Well,
and that was
were we locked down at that point?
No, this was
before
February, I think it was. I suddenly realized something was going on psychologically to people. I couldn't understand what was going on, because it was, I've looked into the old conspiracies and things, moon landings and 9/11 and that sort of thing, but I'm not really a JFK, and not really, it's like you stay away from the David Ickes of the world, because, they're really out there, aren't they? And I hadn't really looked at the woo world that much at all. But, I looked at the maths, and I also trust my intuition, which obviously is one of the key aspects of what we do. It smelled wrong to me. And obviously when they were talking about locking the country down, I went, this is the craziest thing I think I've ever seen. This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. This is for nothing. This is no more deadly than the common flu, and this is just craziness. Something going on here. Didn't know what it was.
I remember we got on a Zoom call with a couple of other people, and at that point you laid out, because all I could think, I'd done the fastest about turn in history, because while my cupboards were full of potatoes and onions, you had basically turned my head around again into, this is fine, this is not going to be anything at all. And which is what I just want to say at this point that you had opened my mind a tiny, tiny chink to weirdness that had gone on in a previous election. And I totally dismissed what you were saying then, because I just thought, well, first of all, I didn't understand it, to be honest. I didn't understand what you were saying. And I didn't understand how something could have happened, like what you were saying. But you were aware of anomalies in things that had happened before up to this point. So you were sort of more awake, as we call it now.
Yeah, I suppose so. But it was right. Okay, let's. Well, when they said we're thinking about locking, I said they're not going to lock us down. That's stupid. That's financially
You
devastating. It's
laid out a series of
yeah.
consequences, didn't you, that were going to
You know,
happen?
this is one of the articles I wrote on the site once was about the problem with ill thought through action. Right, most people don't think through their actions, and so they end up in a completely different place than they thought they were going to end up, and they don't see the hidden consequences of what they're doing. And my problem, I would say now, is I think through to a degree of going, ha, that's where this is going to fall flat, or that's when I'm going to have to do something I don't want to do. Therefore, I'm not going to even start this. So now I can go down those roads. I can go straight through the future of things, and I can find all the bad bits, and I can find all the good bits, and then I can weigh things up a lot better. Most people can't do that because they're just thinking, oh well, this will do to get me out of my job, or this will do to to get the business started, and then I'll figure the next bit out as I go along. Well, yeah, that's great, but it often takes you in completely the wrong direction. I was getting fed up with the fact that nobody could see the bleeding obvious. So my wife said, "Well, what are you going to do about it then?" And I said, I'll do a webcast. I'm going to do a webcast because it's only about 3 or 4 months before everyone wakes up. I'll do a webcast and I'll just tell them I'll predict what's going to happen. And then I can
Because you must have been getting a lot of people from your mailing list contacting you, asking you what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I thought I'll do this webcast and I'll just I'll lay out for people from a rational thinking perspective of where things are, what the choices were, what things were. And I didn't talk about the probability scale then, but where things are, and how to handle living in the world of the unknown. Because we were in a world of an unknown, and everyone was frankly losing their shit, weren't they? They were a mess, and so I thought, right, okay, and here's my problem. How do I convince myself to regularly get to a certain point at the same time every week to be on a webcast?
Yeah, you hadn't done anything like that for a while, had you?
That's like torture to me. That is, anyone who knows, it's like the only thing I'm interested in is freedom. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. And so I thought, right, okay, if I can talk two good friends into being on the webcast with me, I can probably handle doing it, right? And so I talked to you and Paul into doing the webcast with me, and we started that. I think it was
because I knew that regular contact with you would help me keep sane, because things were getting more and more insane. And worse than that, my whole family was splitting in two directions.
Yeah.
Essentially, there was two of us who my sister had found, because she had a thyroid problem. She'd spent quite a lot of time researching health and how to fix her thyroid naturally, and she had become aware of certain anomalies in the pharma system, and so she was unsurprised by all of this. And as things got madder and madder, she was the only person really, apart from you guys, I had to talk to. So it was an easy thing for me to say, yes, I'll come, I'll be on your webinar, because I want to know what's going on. I don't want to be sideswiped like I was in 2010. That was my whole motivation.
Well, we had, what was it? That was over 4 years ago now. We've done those webcasts every week for the last 4 years. Unbelievable. Week, yeah. I never thought I'd be able to stick to something like that. It's far too regimented for me. But we sat there and started calming people's minds down, thing. And then, of course, part of it was I had to go and research it. So, of course, I went and researched all of the stuff. And, it took me a couple of weeks, probably about 10 days to research everything. I don't look to judge something. I look to pour in enough data until the answer becomes self-evident. Yeah. So there's no, I'm not looking to judge something. And when I judge something, I'm also open to it being changed completely. And so
I'm not attached to the outcome.
Yeah. I'm not attached to the outcome, and I don't do black and white thinking. I work to avoid any, I catch myself all the time. So it's irrational thinking is all about staying nimble and collating data and seeing what emerges. And of course, everything I taught about how to access your subconscious mind and everything like that. So, of course, you can get into true source information very, very quickly if you know what you're looking for. And so
Hang
I
on,
was.
slow down. So you're saying that if you, because we all know now that certain search engines are heavily censored, and so, but alternative ways of going and finding information by
Well, yeah,
using.
but there's, but it's also it doesn't matter what they say, it's what you write, questions you're looking to get to the bottom of, and things like that. So the more you word a question differently, often you can get a completely different set of answers asking the same question. And so they were censoring everything that a normal person would write, but I was able to go straight through the censors because I was manifesting all the time, all these different people straight into my life. So anyway, we started the website.
Tell us how that works, because that's a real skill you've got there. Is if you want to know about something and who the genius, the expert is, the real expert, as opposed to the people who set themselves up as experts.
Well, to give you a clue, this is okay. I did it. I've done it my whole life, but there was a particular time that's quite impressive, which I did. It's actually probably the only thing that ever impressed my wife and family. I said I was coming up with this particular business idea, and I thought about it. And I thought, who would be good for this? And I thought at the time, this was, I don't know when it was, 2015, something like that probably. And I thought, oh yeah, Barack Obama, he'd be quite, he'd be able to promote this quite well. Yeah, maybe I should manifest Barack Obama into my life to do this. I didn't manifest Barack Obama, but his sister called me 2 weeks later, right? And it's like, that's how powerful your mind is. And when you learn how to use it, the problem is you have to start from a quiet mind. You have to have a bug-free mind to start with to really be able to do it on purpose. You can do it by accident. We do it by accident. Everybody does it by accident.
Because your own mind chatter stops you, doesn't it? It stops you in your tracks. It puts up barricades.
Oh, well, how is that possible? How are you going to do that? How are you going to solve this problem? Right, and everyone's always talking about the how you're going to do it. Well, they don't understand that, effectively in the spiritual realm, we're all connected. We're all one. So therefore, all I had to do was throw out the intent and see what, it's like putting a line in the water and wait until the fish, I catch the fish. It wasn't something that would suit Barack. It was to do with education. And his sister is she was either the head or somewhere high up in the education department of Hawaii. That's it, Hawaii. So she contacted me about going and talking to the education boards over in Hawaii. And I decided not to do it in the end because I changed my mind on the whole subject. But the point is you can direct your mind to get whatever you want in life. And I know this sounds crazy, but you really can.
I definitely have had that ability all my life, because whenever I made up my mind I wanted to do something, it always happened.
The problem you've got is you allow doubt in. Yeah, no. You didn't allow doubt in when you conceived the idea. You allowed doubt in later. Yeah. And the problem is that doubt is the dream killer. Doubt is the cancer. And so you doubt if you're good enough. I mean, I remember when I was writing my book, my first mindset book, and I watched Dr. Wayne Dwyer speak on the Ellen show for 6 minutes, and it was pure poetry, absolute pure poetry. And I listened to him speak, and I just, and one of the things I had with my previous, one of the goals I wanted is I like seeing success in the people I'm teaching. Yeah. And my dad being a teacher, he taught me how to teach things in a way that people could actually do things. And so anyway, I listened to Dr. Wayne Dyer, and it was poetry. And I sat there and I thought to myself, how the hell can I even hope to write a book that holds a candle to this person who could do this? And at the time I'd read, I think it was Robert Kiyosaki had said something like less than 1% of people take action and get anything from their personal development books. And of course, my first book had documented, I think it was 13 or 12.5% of people had gone and used it and made a lot of money. So I had 1,200%, 1,300% better performance than the very best of personal development books out there. And I sat there and went, Wayne Dwyer should be asking me how the hell he can get more of his people to actually be able to do what he's talking about, because he doesn't know how to do it, right? And instantly, I turned it around in my mind. All of a sudden, he was the expert on this subject inside out, but he couldn't teach it to people. I could teach it to people. So I was the expert then. He was the amateur. Do you see what I mean? So
Yes.
it's how you perceive things is essential.
Yeah, it is. And do you think that entrepreneurs who have what looks like effortless success just don't have the mind pollutants in their head?
Yeah, there is that. I see people. I've coached so many entrepreneurs now, but what happens is they just do it. Success, success, success. They don't know how they're doing it. They're just doing it. Then all of a sudden, life knocks them.
Well, that's what happened with me, the money gym. It became successful. I didn't know how I was doing it. It was just working.
It was, but they end up with life knocks them, and then all of a sudden they can't do it anymore. Right? It's gone. The magic's gone, and they don't know what it is. And I had a friend who was captain of. He wasn't a friend at the first time I met him, but he read my first book, and I was at an event, and we were chatting in the bar, and I didn't know he was captain of Harlequins rugby, I think it was. He said he asked me these questions because he had a psychological problem in sports, and I didn't know any of this at the time. He said, "How would you solve this problem?" I went, "Oh, you do this, blah blah blah," and he went, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Well, it's obvious." And he says, "Well, I can't remember how many sports psychologists he went to. He said, I went to multiple sports psychologists, couldn't fix it. And eventually, after 18 months, I somehow pulled myself out of it. And you've hit the nail on the head in a few seconds." He says, "Why did those sports psychologists not know how to fix the mental problem I had?" I said, "Simple. They're sports psychologists. I'm a success expert. Yeah, I teach people how to be successful. And so you had a success problem. So all I did was remove the problem."
Okay, let's talk more now about, not necessarily about what's going on, because anyone watching this who knows what's going on knows what's going on. How are entrepreneurs to position themselves and to survive what's coming and thrive, if possible, through what's coming? How? Because I bet you are getting calls as well. I got a call the other day from one of my clients who said he's thoroughly woken up to what's happening. He wasn't before, but he is now, and he's looking around now at all the things that we've been learning about over the last 4 years. The impending financial crash because of the way the money system's been set up. The Great Taking, the book by that gentleman that's been doing the rounds, that is worth a read if you've got assets. How do you see how people can position themselves mentally, psychologically, and financially to survive whatever's happening to us at the moment?
I mean, I don't have ongoing businesses anymore. I stopped being in business several years ago, and I was considering new businesses when this hit. So I fortunately realised that I'm not going to need to do any of that. So what I've spent my last few years doing is repositioning my assets into things that will excel going forward.
Discovered that there are wealth cycles, and
absolutely,
and different assets go in different cycles.
Yeah, entrepreneurs are in a lot of trouble. We're going into what's going to be a real the worst storm that we've ever seen. It's going to be worse than the Great Depression. However, things do thrive in the Great Depression. Things thrived in the Great Depression. Al Capone, as an example. I don't encourage that, but the point is there are businesses that will thrive, and I think we're going back to real stuff. I think we're going back to people producing things. I think farming is going to become exceptionally good, local. We're going to be going hyper localized on so much stuff. If I was thinking about going into business at the moment, I would be scared to death of it because of what I can see is coming. I'm just not. The problem is I'm at a point in my life when I'm not prepared to do stuff. It's difficult for me to look at it from a current entrepreneur and without the exact situation. Because if somebody said to me, right, I'm just about to spend $500,000 on this property, then I want to put 150,000 capital into it, and I go, what's the business? And they tell me the business, and I could tell them whether it's going to succeed or fail. That's easy. because if they're going into a sector that is really going to struggle with this, it's like, let's say they're going to go into a pub or something, and they're going to become a landlord. I had a friend asked me recently, what do I advise him about a pub he wants to take on the license of? And I said, avoid it like the plague. I said, can you just carry on, because it's a very high paid job, very high paid work. He's a tradesman. And I said, if you can avoid that pub for the next few years wanting it, then you're going to have a golden opportunity to pick one up for next to nothing. And it's going to be a wonderful time to be a landlord when they deregulate a lot of the stuff that's going on. But right now, it's a death spiral, in my opinion, going into that sort of business right this second. But you'd have to give me the exact business for me to be able to answer.
So what do you foresee being the biggest challenges entrepreneurs are going to face in the next year or two?